again, having some household bills in each person's name is a good idea, even if one person is handling paying of those bills.
Peter, so good to see you. Welcome back to everyone. Today's topic is really important. We have 5 financial blind spots that can burden a grieving spouse. The loss of a spouse is overwhelming, and for many survivors, it often brings a lot of financial surprises as well. So let's talk through those 5 common blind spots. First, we have surprise debt. Many surviving spouses are caught off guard by debts that they didn't even know existed. So how can couples ensure there are no financial surprises when it comes to these financial obligations?
Yeah, and I think a running theme through this conversation is probably going to be to have conversations early, to be open and honest and be on the same page. When one person is sort of handling the finances for the household, like it might not be the other person's thing. And I get that, but nobody should be completely in the dark. And there's got to be like a treasure map, a road map, some instructions, something there for that other person to pick up and understand where things are, or you're not doing them any favors by handling the finances. And I know, and I think a lot of this is going to focus in on the loss of a spouse, but it also can be memory issues, right? Dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that. Can fall into the same category here. So surprise debt. Yeah, that's a big one. If one person is kind of managing the finances and is taking out debt, credit cards, vehicle loans, mortgages, home equity lines of credit, the other person might not realize that these different payments and these different debts have stacked up, and then they find out, unfortunately, after the fact, after payments have been missed, after the spouse has passed away, like you're adding headache to heartache, and it's really can be a very difficult surprise, even if the assets are there to handle it. Just the panic that can ensue from the sudden realization that you owe somebody money and they're wanting to collect after a spouse has passed away can lead to a lot of heartache.
All right, next, being locked out of accounts. It's not uncommon for a surviving spouse to face delays accessing money when accounts are frozen or in probate. So how can these delays be avoided?
Yeah, I mean, properly titling accounts, having joint accounts, having beneficiaries properly named, doing your estate planning. I'm going to add on top of this one here, any accounts where you have paperless statements. More and more in this world, companies are opting not to send out actual mail, saving on, the cost of postage, and people are opting to have those statements delivered electronically. Like that can lead to really being in the dark and not having any way to trace back or track or find some of those accounts. So yeah, being locked out, not having transfer on death, payable on death, not having the passwords for online access, not having the legal authority to access certain accounts if estate planning has not been set up and things have not been named and titled properly. So some of these are generational issues. Most of the time from A to B between spouses, things will pass, but not if the other spouse doesn't know where they're at. And again, proper communication, not just between the spouses, but with your financial and legal professionals, your banking professionals, whoever might be involved, that, hey, if one day I am not here, I need them to be able to do X, Y, and Z and have full and complete access. Those need to be conversations that are had very early on.
Right. Yeah. That's going to be our running theme here too, right?
Yeah.
Communication.
Because we don't all know the day that that's coming either. So we're thinking here of kind of old age issues, but this could be in the 30s and 40s for families. And that is unfortunate and avoidable as well.
Right. All right. Next, invisible credit records. Some widows discover they have little or no credit history in their own name. So what are some steps couples should take while both spouses are alive to ensure that each partner has established credit?
Yeah, again, conversations early, ongoing, open, and honest, and making sure that essential bills and payments are in both people's names,
Right.
or that the other knows how and has been given and granted permission to call and address those bills. That we've got some payments that are in each of the spouse's names. Not that we suddenly want to access credit upon the passing, but we need to be able to access those accounts and access the funds to pay them. And sometimes that is through an account that is in one person only's name. And we need to make sure that we have granted permission, put authority, and that everybody knows where those things are. So again, having some household bills in each person's name is a good idea, even if one person is handling paying of those bills.
All right, the fourth surprise, the reality of a new budget. When one spouse handles all the finances, the true cost of daily life can be eye-opening.
Yeah. And oftentimes we think, well, one person doesn't need as much income. Not that many expenses actually go away. Maybe the food budget
It's
comes
food.
down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little less travel. But ultimately, like, the power bill is going to be about the power bill. The trash bill is going to be about the trash bill. The mortgage payment's going to be about all of, like, the majority of our bills stay about the same. Yet there is often a decrease in the income, because we'll call it an ideal Social Security situation where we've had two high income earners and each is claiming and collecting their own Social Security. Well, that can be as much as a 50% reduction in the total amount of Social Security income coming into the household for the survivor. And even if one survivor was a homemaker and didn't have their own work history, they're claiming a spousal benefit of only half. That's a 1/3 reduction in the Social Security income. And if other sources like pensions have been set up in a similar way, I see this a lot with military families where the military retirement and the disability and things like that, those decisions were maybe made early or don't have survivor benefits on them, plus the Social Security. Like, it is a big adjustment to drop the income substantially. And you got to pre-plan for that with other backup reserve assets to make up for and account for that. And sometimes that home stretch of life, Erin, has higher than normal healthcare expenses. That can also drain the pool of assets that were there and intended to replenish the spending ability of the healthy caregiving spouse. So these things, again, all important, all need to be thought through. And the decisions that we make oftentimes in, like, our 50s and 60s ultimately have their consequences toward the end of life, maybe in our 80s or so. But again, these conversations should be had along the way, because it's not always just reserved for this happening in old age.
Right. And then our last surprise financial blind spot, people suddenly finding themselves as single filers for taxes. This is also known as the widow's tax. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, we have multiple tax codes. They are all determined by your status in life. So if you are married filing jointly versus if you are single, you have different tax brackets that you fall into. And if things are set up to where income is sustainable and we've got about the same amount of income, but we go for married filing jointly, suddenly bumping down to the single head of household brackets, now we are paying substantially more in taxes on the same amount of income. And sometimes people don't realize this and get surprised by that. And again, if it's the person who was, air quotes here, handling the finances that passed away, and suddenly somebody's thrown into not only managing income and investments and paying bills, but now thrust into having to figure out the tax code, this can add another layer of complication in an already difficult time. And so we want to try to do this ahead of time. We talk a lot about Roth conversions on this program and the different uses and the value of Roth conversions. This alone can be a substantial cause for the reason for the benefit of a Roth conversion strategy. So we have sources of income that we can pull from and not bump ourselves into those higher tax brackets. It doesn't have to be just because I want to manage my own tax liability during my lifetime. There's survivorship income for a spouse, the legacy that you leave to kids. Like, these are some of the benefits that are often not thought about or not talked about when we talk about the Roth conversion strategies and why they are so important. Don't want to leave the IRS as your biggest beneficiary. No one does that, but we want to leave our spouse and our children in as best shape as possible. And that's why we need to know and understand these things ahead of time and need to plan proactively for them, Erin.
Right. And again, since our theme here is early communication, Peter, sometimes it's easy when the spouse who handles the finances comes into your office, can sit down, you guys can have this conversation, make sure that kind of these boxes are checked so that there aren't any financial surprises if and when one spouse does pass. So if somebody would like to have that proactive conversation with you, what's the best way to reach you?
And I love when the spouse who doesn't handle the finances joins us in those conversations as well. They don't have to be there for every part of it. They don't have to dive into the details of, what's investment strategy and funds we're using, but they should know where things are. They should know who I am. They should have that relationship, and just be aware of things. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get people to come in. Like, this is just not my thing. I don't want to, but most of the time I find that they are extremely grateful and appreciative of knowing where things are, especially when things come up in life. And again, Erin, that communication should start early. So come on in. We put together that optimized retirement plan. It is a working document. It details your specifics. It's a great resource for people to turn to say, here's where our things are. Here's the summary of our accounts. I've had a couple situations, unfortunately, recently, Erin, where people called me up and a loved one has passed away or is no longer capable of handling the finances. And they say, hey, we need to get a handle on things really quickly. And I can, provide them this document and they're a quick snapshot summary of where everything is at and tell them which piece is doing what job for them. Adding a lot. So come on in. If we have not had that conversation previously, if you'd like to find out why that optimized retirement plan is so valuable and so many people have benefited from it, give us a call, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886. You can also go online, richonplanning.com. It looks like richonplanning.com.
Great. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Hey folks, Peter Richon here with Richon Planning. So glad that you are enjoying the podcast, Planning Matters Radio. One of the tools that we've put out there that people really seem to appreciate and really are finding of value is at 919retired.com. It is your retirement tax bill calculator. If you've got any kind of retirement account, your tax deferred, 401k or IRA, this is the website, this is the resource where you can go, you can plug in your own numbers, your information, you can slide the tool calculator up and down for your tax rate or your amount of savings and see what your tax bill is likely to be if you default and defer to the IRS's plan versus what you could potentially bring that tax bill down to. A lot of times it is a very significant savings. So if you have not yet, go to the website 919retired.com, run your numbers on the retirement tax bill calculator.
This has been Planning Matters Radio.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookzone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone.